Welcome to the drive-by movie news of last week. My name's Blaise, and first off, we have that The Walking Dead's Andrew Lincoln will be leaving after next season. You might also know him as Rick Grimes. Currently, he just finished wrapping up the 8th season and has signed off that season 9 will actually be his last. Currently, The Walking Dead producers are in talks with Norman Reedus to extend his contract, obviously offer him a lot more compensation as well, so that he'll now be the main character of the show. Anyways, I don't really read the comics, but I'm assuming that possibly it might be the end of Rick Grimes. I don't think he's just going to happen to leave the show in a weird way. They're obviously going to have a great send-off for him, so I might actually check that out. Next up, we have that Melissa McCarthy's new movie, The Happytime Murders. If you haven't seen the trailer, go check it out, then come back here. Anyways, it's like a raunchy puppet comedy, I guess brought to us by Jim Henson's company. So they use the puppets, like similar puppets to the Muppets, and kind of the puppeteers will actually be working on the film as well. But they have recently been sued by Sesame Street because their logline is no Sesame, all Street. I was going to say all Sesame, no Street, which is actually Sesame Street's logline. So Sesame Street is currently suing them about this logline, which is basically using them in the logline essentially. I guess this is interesting though, because Jim Henson Company did, develop a lot of the original puppets for Sesame Street. They didn't produce the show, but they had made the puppets, and I'm sure some of their puppeteers went off to help with that show. So this is kind of an interesting, corporate puppet propaganda world, I guess. We'll see how this kind of pans out. But what's funny is that the Happytime Murders used they created a puppet who was a lawyer, and it's firing back at the Sesame Street lawyers. But this is kind of silly. It kind of makes me feel like this is just propaganda and not actually a news story. I feel like this isn't a real lawsuit, or maybe they're just not taking it seriously at all and using it as a perfect way to promote the new film. So anyways, I'm not going to say any of those words. I don't want to get sued by this lawyer as well. It seems kind of sue happy. Next up, Jamie Foxx has signed on to star in Todd McFarlane's Spawn. He's going to be playing the titular character, Spawn, and actually Todd McFarlane has given a little insight on what his version of Spawn might be like. He doesn't really actually envision Spawn doing too many lines of dialogue, and he doesn't really envision his Spawn to be too much of a talker. This will be a talkie, but I guess Spawn isn't going to be the main kind of character. He kind of sees Spawn in a Carpenter-esque way of the boogeyman, someone like Michael Myers that doesn't actually talk that much, just fights the battle of good and evil while not actually saying a word. I find this interesting. He said Spawn will talk, throughout the movie, just it's not really going to be his main thing. It's going to focus more on the character without giving us an origin story like the old 90s version of the Spawn did, or some of the comics in the beginning. He says he's over origin movies, and Jamie Foxx, he thinks, has the perfect mannerisms and body language to give us this character of Spawn without actually having to give us too much dialogue. So I like the idea of this. I think that this is a cool version of Spawn, and I mean, if you're gonna get a real Spawn movie, it's gonna have to be from Todd McFarlane. He's also mentioned that the budget's gonna be between 12 and 15 million. That actually kind of worries me though. I guess in my idea of Spawn, I'm only looking at the original 90s movie, which was really cutting edge for the time. But I don't really understand how they're gonna make this movie for 12 or 15 million. I know Blumhouse is behind it, so maybe he can cut some deals, cut some corners, and still make a great movie. But this is Todd McFarlane's first movie, so we'll see how this goes. I'm sure more news will develop as this story continues. It's been 12 years in the making, but we will finally be seeing an adaptation of Gabriel Rodriguez and Joe Hill's Locke and Key. There's been multiple false starts for this production. It's been literally a decade, and the show has been shopped at Foxx, Hulu, but it's now finding its new home on Netflix. Most recently, a pilot was produced for Locke and Key by Hulu. Andy Muschietti, who's famous from It Chapter 1 as well as Chapter 2 coming soon, directed the pilot, but he's actually going to be moving back into an executive producer role. Netflix is actually stepping forward to produce a whole new pilot for this show that will be more concurrent with their vision of the show going forward. Carlton Cuse is show running the show. He actually worked on the previous pilot with Andy Muschietti, but he's now going to be show running this new version of the show that Netflix is going to make perfectly bingeable for audiences. Locke and Key is the story of three siblings and their mother who, after the death of their father, find a series of keys that can open doors to different dimensions, while also there's a demon who's hell-bent on getting those keys. I haven't actually read the story of Locke and Key, but I find this to be really interesting. It's something that I definitely want to look into. It was kind of a serialized comic. I know it's not too long. I looked up on Amazon. I saw that there was only about I think it was 5 issues maybe. There's Masterworks, there's only 3 of them, so hopefully it's not too many issues. I'm interested to get into it. I love horror comics, so this definitely looks like it's right up my alley. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the news this week. Tune in next week, June 10th, for the news of next week. And in the meantime, leave a comment below. Are you excited about Locke and Key? Have you read the comic books? Is that something you're interested in? Or are you really excited about the new Spawn, seeing it told by its creator, Todd McFarlane? Is that something that interests you? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next week.